Thank you very much, participants. I hope everybody can listen me. Thank you very much for attending this webinar. Special thanks to IRCM who are actually managing all these sessions online while we are having all this pandemic going around us. I hope everybody is safe, everybody is well protected from this global challenge. In that case, I would be really appreciating IRCM for its efforts for involving all technical benefit. They can actually learn something. They can be actually in contact with the technical advancements. So, I mean, it's a good initiative by them. We are today here to discuss or to elaborate a very emerging maintenance philosophy that is being taken up by all modern societies, all modern plants. But unfortunately, in Pakistan and UAE, we are having still some problems in getting to that excellence level. So it is all about reliability-centered maintenance, which I'll be talking about today. The basic purpose of this specific, for choosing this specific topic is that we have been involved from years and years into conventional maintenance tactics, which we actually being followed for decades. But right now the situation everywhere is that we need to be optimized. We need to be optimized with respect to the performance of plants, with respect to the cost effectiveness, with respect to the optimum usage of the manpower, everything. So while focusing on that cost optimization, optimized plant operations, I guess reliability-centered maintenance is the right approach through which we can achieve our objectives all the time. I'll be starting very shortly with this presentation. I hope everybody can listen me, and I am reachable to everybody. If you have any problem, any query, any question regarding this session, please, you can always send us a question in the chat box, which will be received by me, and I will be answering that. And I need your active participation. At some point, I'll be asking the organizer, Jawad Sahab, to open up all the mics. And if somebody wants to come up with some good input, I'll be more than happy to take him on board. So that's all from my side for the introductory remarks. Let's start the actual lecture. So it's about reliability-centered maintenance that is a guarantee to optimized plant solutions. Now, how we can get that guarantee? Let's scroll through the topics that I'll be covering. I'll be starting with the conventional maintenance approach, what we have been following for decades and for years. Then I'll be moving on towards RCM objectives and its framework. Then people who are actually a bit familiar with RCM, they must know about these 7 questions. They actually are the 7 pillars of RCM. We'll be addressing them one by one. Then I'll be moving on to those 7 questions turn by turn. The first one is actually to understand the asset functions. Then I'll be moving on towards defining failure states and going through FMEA, that is failure mode and effect analysis. Then I'll be talking about failure consequences, defining appropriate maintenance philosophies. Then we'll be talking about some default actions. And by the end of this lecture, I'll be showing you some sample sheets. They are actually being used to record all the decisions. We call them as RCM decision worksheets. So this is the all periphery of the content which I'll be sharing with you. During this presentation, we'll be having 3 exercises. You will be seeing some exercise on the screen, and I'll be communicating with you guys, and you will be responding to those exercises while we'll be keeping you unmuted. And you can record your answers while in the chat box directly through me, and then we can have that assessment side by side. So if all good, we can carry it further. Joseph, is all going okay?
Gee, all good. Things are going fine. I can see people are joining
Any,
in the session, sir. You may continue with your session. Thank you, sir.
and everybody listening me?
Yes, apparently there is no voice problem with anyone. I can see people, their mic and their speakers are connected. And one person had the problem, but it has been solved. Mr. Ali, I think that your voice issue has been resolved now. Okay, sir, the issues have been resolved. You can actually continue. The people are waiting.
Fine. Good. Okay, Ji, let's start. I'll be starting with the first part, that is conventional maintenance approach. What has been followed through decades? Well, the techniques are itself not that old, but the approach that we have been following to utilize those techniques, that is actually obsolete. So let's start with that. The very first thing which you can see right now in front of your screens are, we are having four maintenance types, starting from reactive maintenance. Then we are having preventive maintenance, predictive maintenance, and then proactive maintenance. So these are four different regimes that are being followed at different plant sites in their individual capacities. Let me go through one by one of these four conventional regimes very quickly, so that we can spend more time on RCM philosophy. So maybe a couple of slides for each technology, each regime. Let's start with reactive maintenance. Very interesting sort of concept. If something is running, let it be. Once it will fail, we'll see what to do. So the theme is, if it isn't break, do not fix it. Actually, we are waiting for the failure to occur. And once that failure is there, only then we will be reacting. So it is highly unplanned. We have left everything to our fates. And once something happens, then actually we react to that. So it is highly undesirable. No planning is there, and once that asset is down, which we have left to its own, we encounter a lot of problems. And one of them is the secondary damage, where you have left, for example, one specific pump on this reactive maintenance regime, but once it fails, it takes up quite many equipment along with it, as not only limit its effects to itself. So it is highly undesirable, but with some advantage that actually you are not spending single penny on any maintenance budget. But its negative effects, they actually do prominent on the positive sides. So highly undesirable. Then, in comparison to reactive maintenance, we have another technique that is called as preventive maintenance. It is most commonly being observed in every plant site, where all decisions are being taken based on the time schedules. Once the time is there, you just perform that action, irrespective whether it is required or not. A true example is that once we change oil of our cars, we do not bother whether it is required or not. We just follow the number of kilometers or the number of time, number of maybe days, and then we just do that action. So same philosophy is being followed. It is all based on time. No consideration is given to the condition of the machine. Elapsed time is the criteria. Hours of operation is the criteria, and then you just perform that action when it arrives, when the time arrives. I'll be going a bit into the detail of time-driven maintenance, which we call it as preventive maintenance. This is an example of all this regime, where we are having a specific schedule for different techniques. It is just a sample sort of activities which I have assembled together just to give you an idea, that we have a list of activities on the left hand side, and on the right hand side we have defined its intervals, when actually that required and when actually it is not, and we just follow that blindly. When the time comes, we have to assemble the activities and perform that. All these preventive maintenance activities, they are actually based on a very interesting concept, by the way, that is called as bathtub curve. That bathtub curve is actually in front of you. We are having failure rates on the vertical axis, and operational time on the horizontal axis. And we can see that in the start of the operation, we are having a lot many failures, a lot many problems coming in. We call that as run-in phase. Then the number of failures, they become smooth, and then by the end of the life cycle, I would say, of any asset, we expect a bit more number of failures. This is, I mean, quite interesting. According to this concept, we use some mix of languages. एक इंसान को एक डॉक्टर के पास जाने की जरूरत सिर्फ उसके एंड टाइम के अंदर आती है या once he is getting old. I don't think so that is the true case. I mean, we all at some point have to face some problems in our life. Same is the case with the machines. Nature of failures, they are highly random. They are not predictable. We always try to assemble different techniques to assess the upcoming failure. There are many, but we cannot relate it with time. So here comes the flaw, that relating failure occurrence with time is not good. And the second drawback for this bathtub curve is it is driving all equipment type with one yardstick, that it is the time only. Once the time is passing, things are getting deteriorated and you need to find the replacement. So it is not wise, not even to drive similar models of the machine, I would say, operating at different areas of the same plant. Even then it is not advisable. Different operating conditions are there, different operator skills are there. So I mean, it is not advisable, once again, to drive all equipment with one yardstick, that is time. So we are having a lot of issues with preventive maintenance. So, but the thing is, if we follow that, we have to follow bathtub curve, and that bathtub curve is actually having different formats. As you can see in front of you, we are having different conditions right now. I mean, in some cases, it is starting and ending in this way. Sometimes it is having some sort of randomness. And in few cases, like the pattern E, if you can see, we are having a constant random failure. So it is actually an aviation data, references the aviation data. And the conclusion out of this slide is that if we define a healthy preventive maintenance plan for any plant site, what we see that only 11% of the machines, they actually do obey these laws. They actually follow with respect to, they actually fail maybe with respect to time. But rest of the 89% of the machines, any problem can come anytime. You cannot predict that with respect to time. So 11 out of 100 machines, they actually can be kept safe using this philosophy, but still 89% of the machines, they are at risk. So is it advised to carry forward with this technique? I don't think so, just because we are still having randomness. So what is the solution then? The solution comes out to our bread and butter, I would say, predictive maintenance, where all decisions are being taken on the basis of condition of the machine and not on the basis of time. You do that activity only when it is required. Basic difference between preventive and predictive is, in preventive it is all time based, but in predictive it is all condition based. I mean, once the condition is required, once some condition is indicating you something, you just plan your activity. So the challenge is now how to assess different conditions. Is it some question going on or something like this? Jawad sir, will you help me in that?
Sir, this is just an activity in the room. We have some questions, but I think we must have the question session once we have finished the first module.
All right. Okay. I would ask everybody, please, you just put your questions in this chat box, and then I'll be answering them one by one once we finish with the first session. Okay. I was talking that for predictive maintenance, the challenge is that we need to assess the condition. We need to have some technologies and then skills to interpret those technologies. We need to have these things, and only then we can assess true condition. It will be giving us a lot of data which we'll be analyzing and then assessing the exact state of that machine, and hence we'll be defining different sort of categories of maintenance activities. What are those actually techniques which we need to follow? I'll be starting with the vibration analysis. I hope a majority of the guys listening right now, they are a bit familiar with the vibrations. What we do in vibration analysis is we actually monitor the movements of the machine. As you can see from this slide, we are having a sensor being attached to a sample machine, that system, and this is what we can see right now, where we are having amplitude versus time waveform versus frequency spectrum. These, which you can see in spectrums, these are actually fault frequencies, which are indicating different types and nature and severity of fault that is coming inside any machine. Another look where we are having a lot of front of you, then I can see, but each and every they are indicating different nature of to monitor. Then second technique that we actually utilize to monitor different machines are windrock analysis, which is actually focused primarily on reciprocating machines, reciprocating compressors and engines. As you can see, I hope you can see the crank angle on the bottom, where every activity going on inside a reciprocating machine is being taken up by crank angles. So we can see different bundles of energies at different locations, which are truly indicating different activities going on. So we can decide what is happening. Then after windrock analysis, we go for thermal imaging, where we actually assess the thermal gradients, temperature distributions. A very interesting and very easy to use technique. We just holding a camera in our hands and then taking thermograms and then visualizing those thermograms. As you can see, if you guys can see my cursor, there is something wrong at this location where we are having a whitish sort of wire, which is actually some line somewhere here. So we can easily take up thermal imaging out of it, and we can use the fault. Then next technique is acoustic emissions, where we actually listen to the fault. Every failure mod, they actually generate a unique acoustic signal. It is there. We need a technique to analyze that. I will try running one noise in front of you, one sample bearing voice. I hope you can listen. Listen to okay. So what is going on actually? It is actually a slow speed bearing, and the crackling sound coming after some time is actually some problem with the inner race, and we are having ultrasound acoustic data collector, which is recording these activities beyond 20 kilohertz, and we can listen to them. Here I would like to say that in predictive maintenance, few techniques are much more sensitive for specific failure modes as compared to others. Sometimes we try to find some indication in vibrations, but we are not successful. And the same indications we can get through acoustic data, and sometimes it gets vice versa. So while we're talking about conventional maintenance approach and we are discussing predictive maintenance, the conclusion is that we need to assess the condition of the machine while taking on board many different technologies, where we can have a combination. Sometimes one technique will work and sometimes the other technique will work. So I normally used to revise things time to time. So let me quickly go through what we have done so far. We have discussed till now three maintenance philosophies. The first one was reactive maintenance. Then we had preventive maintenance. Then we are just discussing predictive maintenance. The theme of reactive was do not fix it till it breaks. And the theme of preventive maintenance was it is all time based, no other factor is involved. And what is the theme for predictive maintenance? It is all condition based. So let's move on towards the last technique. We call it as proactive maintenance, where we address the root cause of the problem. Let me put you another very basic and interesting example. We launched a very expensive predictive maintenance program at any site, and we were successful in highlighting a bearing problem in a machine, and we detected it timely. We avoided a big failure, but what we did that we replaced that bearing timely. We avoided a big failure, but soon after replacing, maybe within 1 week, we experienced the same problem. So what is going on? We are actually detecting that fault. We are actually replacing the machine element, but we are not addressing the root cause of the problem. Maybe there is something going wrong with the alignments, maybe something going wrong with the balancing stuff, or anything else going on. So once you address the root cause after predictive maintenance, we call that as proactive tasks or proactive maintenance. So let me quickly summarize: reactive, preventive, predictive, and proactive. Reactive, do not fix it till it breaks. Preventive, it is all time based. Predictive, it is all condition based. And proactive, it is all about getting to the root cause of the problems. So here I conclude my first section. Though it is covering quite basic stuff, but still, if somebody has any question, any comment, anything to share, please do ask me now. Then I'll be moving on towards RCM. Over to you, Jawad sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saab. That was a great and informative session. Thank you very much, all participants, to be here. I can see a lot of new faces here. I think if we can take a short break here and take some feedback from our participants. I will unmute all those who will send a message in the chat box if they have any question or if they want to interact with Dr. Anis, so he can directly answer to them. Right, I can start from a question. Dr. Anis, if you can hear me, we have a question from Mr. Azim. He says, in bath curve, from start machine, Mr. Azim, you need to actually rewrite your question. It is not actually.
He can speak right away, straight away.
Sorry?
He can speak unmuted.
Okay, Azim sir, I can unmute you. If you have a question, you can actually tell me the question here. I'm unmuting you. Meanwhile, Dr. Saab, I can put another question from Naveed Ahmed Khanzada. Naveed Saab is asking, do you think that the maintenance optimization models are the best solutions to find the optimal condition in between the preventive and reactive maintenance?
Okay, Khanzada sir, actually, this is actually the theme of all this presentation. I hope by the end of this lecture, you will be having quite fair idea what your questions answer can be. We are actually talking about, we'll be talking about RCM, where our major task will be identifying different maintenance philosophies for different machine assets. We can't afford to have predictive maintenance on all of the machines. We can't afford to put all of the plant on reactive maintenance. So we have to pick and choose. So the criteria for picking and choosing these technologies, I'll be discussing that in a very detail. Just bear with me for some time. We are having a specific section on this specific part.
Thank you very much, Dr. And then we have another question and some appreciations from some participants. Thank you very much for your good comments, Mr. Ali. I am actually trying to move forward to next question. Mr. Junaid Iqbal is asking, what is the main difference between predictive and proactive maintenance? I think, Junaid Sahab, I think you must have got this answer.
I mean, no, let me tell. Junaid Sahab, actually, proactive maintenance can be considered as a subcategory of predictive maintenance. Once you predict the fault, only then you can get to the root cause. So, in the sequence of events, actually, what I explained, you have to identify bearing first through predictive, and then find the root cause with proactive task. Maybe you need to perform some alignment or something like this. So predictive is to identifying the problem, and proactive is to the identifying the root cause of that problem. I hope you got your answer.
I believe so. If you need any further elaboration, if you want further detail, you can still ask us. Vikas Brother Sir, this presentation, this whole webinar will be uploaded on YouTube. So you can see actually from there. Mr. Mohammed Faisal is asking, can we say that proactive maintenance is reliability-based preventive maintenance?
Sorry. No, actually, proactive can be one of the ingredient of reliability-centered maintenance. We'll be discussing that very soon. It can be one ingredient of that. Yeah. Yes, please.
Okay, moving forward, I can see Mr. Abdul Wahid Sheikh Sir. Sir, thank you very much. You are always very kind to us. Dr. Sir, if you allow me,
Please.
Thank you, Vajid. Abdul Wahid Sheikh Sir want to share his experience with us, and he is always very kind and very informative with us. So, dear all participants, I'm just handing over it to Abdul Wahid for 2 minutes so he can share his views. Sir, up to you.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much, Mr. Jawad Sahab. Very, very quickly, it's always very challenging to move from reactive approach to predictive maintenance and to proactive maintenance. There are lots of challenge because at the end of the day, don't forget humans, people are the people who will accept that change and try to make it successful. So whatever we do it, whatever scientific systems we bring it into the place, into the organization, please do bear in your minds, this is my own lifetime experience, that get people on board. Have an idea, sell it to them rather than telling them, because people would like, don't forget, people would like to have a little recognition. We are all human beings, would like to be recognized. We need to be get
Thank you very much, Wahid Sahab. Very kind. Yes, true. I mean, it is all cultural change, to be honest. Once that culture is not being shifted, you can't get good benefits out of that. We need to take people on board. Okay. Thank you very much for all these questions. I can assume people are listening and they are grasping. Otherwise, if I do not get any question, there are two possibilities. Either you are getting everything or you are getting nothing. So I hope people are getting something out of it. Let's move on towards our second section, that is RCM objectives and framework. Now, having background of all conventional maintenance approach, let's now talk about RCM. Okay, RCM is actually its present operating context. Believe you me, every word in this preface, in this sentence, carrying a complete different story, a complete different topic, to be honest. Defining physical assets, then assessing user requirements, then addressing operating context. Everything is a different topic. So I repeat once again, it is a process. RCM is a process used to determine what must be done to ensure that any physical asset continues to do what its users wants it to do in the present operating context. So this is all about RCM. अब इसका मतलब क्या है, कहाँ पे ये चीजें involve हो रही हैं, how to mix them. Let me proceed further with my slides. Okay, let's go for some theoretical plant downtime. Condition of equipment must be known. Commitment to extend the useful life of equipment through identification and elimination of failure modes. You do identification using predictive maintenance and elimination using proactive maintenance. I think somebody asked this question. So it is actually a combination of both. First, you need to identify, and then you need to eliminate that problem. Development of work teams and team goals combining maintenance operations. This is what actually Wahid Saab told us, that it is all a cultural change where you have to take everybody on board, only then you can achieve these objectives. Then we are having maintenance and operations are partners in providing and utilizing plant capacity. Fine. Maintenance is knowledge based, providing for improved decision making. Commitment to create a learning organization where mistakes are not repeated. Then the most important point is this one, number 8, where having development of predictive, proactive, preventive, and reactive approaches. I would say this is the whole sum of the story, which I'll be telling you very soon. Both management and operations staff develop a plan for action and improvement. Okay, that's fine. And maintenance function has long-term objectives where gains are sustained year and a half year. I mean, it is not a short-sighted sort of objective. We need to focus for long-term gains. So these are some theoretical goals. This is a bit complicated to write. What I'll be doing is I'll be going through a series of very basic questions. We are having only 2 answers for each question. Either it is yes or no, and we'll be trying to figure out what sort of maintenance activity we are deciding. I think this will answer that participant's question, that which technology should be used for what activity. So let's start. You need to focus on the screens, and you will see the answers very soon. The very first question that everybody needs to ask about its asset. Asset means anything, any machine, any skid, any asset, any stationary, rotary, reciprocating, whatever. Is assets reliability acceptable? Very interesting question. If the answer is yes, it is acceptable. It's a continuous improvement loop, and that improvement never ends. The problem starts when this question gives an answer that assets reliability is not acceptable. Then what? Then we need to ask, is assets mission critical? How much we are dependent on this asset right now? हमारा इस वक्त जो operation है, how much that is dependent on it? If that mission is critical, if the answer is yes, I need to ask another question. I need to maintain that asset in any case. My question will be, will improved maintenance cost effectively achieve the reliability objective? And if my answer is no, that my asset's mission is not critical, I'm lying at this location, my asset's mission is not critical, then I need to ask, is that asset expendable? What does this mean? My asset mission is not critical. Means if it goes off, I have no issue. But do I afford कि ये कोई machine आज खराब हुई है या कोई breakdown आया है, ठीक है, अभी तो मुझे इसकी जरूरत नहीं है, but can I keep it as it is for long, or I just dispose it off? No, that cannot be an option maybe. So if that asset is expendable, if it has failed today and I do not need it again, and the answer is yes, probably I don't need that asset, we can afford to put that asset on run to failure or reactive maintenance activity. But that asset not expendable, only the criticalities vary, and this answer comes out to be no, I need it. So I will complete that loop at this location that we need to do some maintenance activity for that. So now we are having 2 legs of our discussion. The first one is that asset which is critical to my operation, and that asset which is not critical to my operation, but I need it up at some point. Both domains need a good maintenance activity. So I am focusing now at this part. Will improved maintenance cost effectively achieve the reliability objective? If the answer is yes, then you can deploy advanced maintenance tactics. And here I would say this is actually about preventive and predictive maintenance. But if the answer is no, I'm ready to spend money, I'm ready to define different maintenance tactics, but still I cannot guarantee that I will be getting good maintenance, good operations out of my machine. Then my question will be, current combination of sequence of activities, they are not going to work. Can I afford to go for redesign? Can I go for some redefining my principles? So the question will be, will redesign cost effectively achieve the reliability objective? And the word comes wherever is the redesign, which you talk about proactive maintenance. If the redesign answer is yes, deploy redesign, but still by even redesigning, still you are expecting to see the same problem, then deploy redundancy. So what we have done so far, if you can see my cursor on the screen, Devasa, can you see it? Can you see my cursor?
Yes, sir, yes, it's visible.
Okay. At this location, run the asset to the failure. It is that asset which has fallen today, but I don't need it anymore. And this asset, which I have done whatever I could do, but still I couldn't get the reliability. These both assets can be put on to run to the failure or reactive maintenance. But this asset where we are having difference of criticalities, we can put them under predictive maintenance. And where we can have a word redesign, current combination is not working, we have to go for proactive maintenance, where we can shift a regime, we can find the root cause, we can address different combination of activities that can address our problem. So this is a very basic, I would repeat, a very basic sort of decision making diagram to decide which technique should be adopted for what sort of equipment, what sort of operating context is there, but that shouldn't be used as a complete criteria. I repeat my words, please don't use it as a complete criteria to define these maintenance tactics. This is much more to cover. But I hope everybody listening right now, they can have a fair idea that how we need to define different maintenance tactics for different assets. I hope people get something out of it. Questions are there?
Yes, thank you, Amir sir. Quite interesting session. So we have some feedback. Wakar Ali, thank you for your feedback. And one question from a participant. We cannot see his name. He is coming with the name of Huawei Mate 10. I'm actually unmuting you. When you put a question, sometime due to limitation, equipment face breakdown. Sir, you are live now. Please give your introduction, your name, and the company background, and then have your question directly with Dr. Anis.
Sir, I'm waiting.
Okay, we are not getting any.
Okay, I can see this question. Sometimes due to limitations, equipment face breakdowns, even you predict the problem. Is this good practice? Well, I mean, our main objective is to minimize those conditions. We cannot be all sins free. I mean, we have to accept that. We need to minimize. There is never 100% quality. It is always 99.999 something. So, I mean, we need to precise to the maximum level where we can go. It is not good practice, but we should do something to avoid that. Then I think it is somebody, Israr Saab hai ji koi KCCL se, he is asking that I think predictive, proactive and condition based techniques are good to be implemented. Preventive frequency based approach will be too costly. For low cost items, we can implement frequency based testing. You're right, Mr. Israr. इसमें cost effectiveness का part अभी इंशाल्लाह हम discuss करेंगे. जहाँ पे cost effectiveness is the ultimate driver of everything. If the value of the asset is much less as compared to the system you are installing on that to predict its failure, it is not justified. So yes, that cost factor is very important. And I think this is the same question being asked by Mr. Said Rasool also. Then let's talk about our third section, that is 7 questions of RCM. These are actually 7 pillars. So let me open that up. Let me go through all these questions and then we'll be addressing one by one. The very first question is, I would request now everybody to please focus a lot on this that you see how they actually topple any plant's maintenance philosophy. What do users want it to do? What are its functions? Second question is, in what ways can it fail? Means, in what ways can a machine fail? What causes it to fail? What are the reasons? Does it matter if it fails? Are we really bothered if that failure occurs? What happens when it fails? Actually, what are the consequences? Can anything be done to predict or prevent the failure? Can we do anything to stop that? And what if we cannot prevent the failure? I mean, if we have done everything and still we are having the same problem, what should be the strategy? Now, you will agree with me that these 7 questions are actually those frameworks of RCM, which we discussed in the previous slide. What does user want it to do? In what ways can it fail? What causes it to fail? Does it really matter if it fails? What happens when it fails? Can anything be done to predict or prevent the failure? And what if we cannot prevent the failure? So these are 7 pillars through which all RCM strategies are linked up. Let's start addressing one by one all of these questions. Let me start with understanding asset functions. This is very interesting part. It is saying, the first question is, what do users want it to do? What are its functions? And then on the left hand side, you can see the purpose of a function statement should consist of a verb and an object and the desired standard of performance. My all focus now from onward will be desired standard of performance. What actually I want out of that asset. That standard of performance is actually depending upon 2 factors. The first factor is desired performance. मेरी wish list क्या है? What actually I want out of that asset. And the second part is built-in capability. What it can actually do. मेरी desire क्या है? मैं क्या चाहता हूँ? Or what an asset can do for me. I think it is not only limited to machines. It is equally applicable to human beings. Developing expectation levels with different people, having high expectations with many people let you sometimes very dangerous mode. So आप जो जिस बंदे से expect कर रहे हैं वो उस level पे है भी कि नहीं? I don't know. So same happens with the machine. What is the desired performance and what actually that difference? Let's elaborate it further. Now, this is actually further subheading, that is, we call it as a maintainable asset. कौन सा asset maintainable? If you can focus on this screen, this is actually on the bottom line where my cursor is moving. This is actually desired performance, what the user want it to do. And this up line, the top line, that is actually initial capability where it can do. Level out of it, so that asset is maintainable, so that we can survive with that. But in the scenario where we are having just opposite to that, we call it as non-maintainable asset, where our desired performance is on the higher side and the initial capability is on the lower side. We are expecting too much out of the machine, but it is not capable to perform. We're expecting too much out of a person, but it is beyond his capability to come up to your expectation level. Let it be. So we need to be very specific at this specific interval. What actually we are wanting, if that desired level is higher and the asset is not working up to that capability, we cannot maintain that. Let me give an example. Most of our plant sites, we know that कुछ हमारी rated capacity इतनी है, but हम इसको ओवर कैपेसिटी पे रन कर रहे हैं. And what is the reason behind that? So in that case, this loop is truly applicable. You are actually expecting something more out of your paper mill, out of your cement mill, out of your oil and gas rig, out of your utility areas of any food plant. But your capabilities are lying well below that. So that is actually a non-maintainable asset. So what's the conclusion out of that? The conclusion is, for any asset to be maintainable, the desired performance of the asset must fall within the envelope of its initial capability. I would repeat that. For any asset to be maintainable, the desired performance of the asset, the desired requirement, what you want from an asset. So desired performance of an asset must fall within the envelope of its initial capability. In simple words, capability zyada hai, requirement kam hai, you can work with that, otherwise it is not possible. Let's take an example. I hope people are with me. Kyun ji, aisa hi hai? Can I have any feedback till now?
Apparently, all is going well. Dear all participants, you can
Good.
share your questions or comments in the chat box. I can see interaction of people here, interest of people here. Some people mistakenly left the room, the webinar room, and then they joined back. It means that it is going very good. People are coming back if they leave the room mistakenly. Yes.
Okay. Mistakes. Okay. Let's talk about this example, Ji. Having all this background which I've told you, let's take a scenario where we are having two reservoirs, reservoir A and reservoir B, having a pump attached. My requirement is that I need to pump from reservoir A to reservoir B at a rate not less than 300 liters per minute. मेरी requirement क्या है जी? That is 300 liters per minute. But what my asset can do for me, it can deliver up to 400 liters per minute. So this is the scenario. So this is actually my asset's initial capability. What asset can do for me? 400 liters per minute. And this is actually the required amount which I actually need, which is my standard of performance, desired of performance, that is 300 liters per minute. So I can have a margin of deterioration right now at this location. I will not be bothered if the capability of my asset that falls below 400 to 380, 350, 320, 310, 35. But if it falls below 300, which I have filling the required function out of my pump, it has failed. So the point which I'm trying to make is the capability was lying higher, 400 liters per minute, but the requirement was on the lower side, that is 300 liters per minute. So the margin of deterioration was there. It started deteriorating. I was not bothered till that level hit my desired level of performance. So what the importance is, I need to identify these two levels. What can an asset do for me, 400 liters, and what actually I need out of my asset, that is 300 liters per minute. So maintenance maintenance is concerned with preserving the functions of the physical assets. This is a key word, key sentence. So maintenance is concerned with preserving the functions of physical assets, what actually users want out of that. I hope this slide has clarified a lot many things. Now, what are the function types? There are two major types of functions. One is the primary function, the reason why the asset exists. And then we are having a list of series of secondary functions. Anything other than primary is all secondary, where environmental integrity, structural safety, control, comfort, appearance, efficiency, economy, all things are coming up. So the primary and secondary functions are there. Here are a few examples. We are having a picture in front of us, a snap in front of us. Different assets are working. And we can define different asset objectives with respect to their standard of performances. For example, you can see low-level alarms in control room at 4,000 liters, Low level pump starts at 50,000 liters. High level pump stops at 200,000 liters. So see, these sort of activities you need to properly identify, and then you can define the asset level, asset requirements, what actually you want from that. Typical functions can be to supply minimum 800 liters of water to the downstream process. अब इसके अंदर desired standard of performance क्या होगा जी? It will be 800 liters. That is the key thing. अगर 800 liter पूरा हो रहा है, I should not be bothered. But if 800 liters are not being met, then it's a failure state. To start pump when the tank level reaches 50,000 liters. So what is my desired standard of performance? That is 50,000 liters. To stop pump when the tank level reaches 200,000 liters. Standard of performance will be 200,000 liters. To sound an alarm in the control room when the tank level falls below 40,000 liters. So this is my standard of performance. So my focus again and again is going on, define that state which is not acceptable to that asset. In other words, define desired standard of performance. Okay, let's be interactive now. Let's start with an exercise. यहाँ तक कोई question किसी साहब? Anybody, if you want to ask me something, please do tell me. कुछ मैं देख रहा हूँ यहाँ पे. There is a sound problem. It's okay now. I think there's nothing wrong.
Yes, sir.
Hope
yes,
getting all
Everything
okay.
is going good.
Anybody wants to share any experience right now? Wahid Saab, I don't know, maybe I can see here. Shoaib maybe. Anybody can share his experience. Everybody's getting.
No, we got Ali Nazir saying something. Ali Nazir, I'm unmuting you for a while. So you can actually have your question directly with Dr. Anis. Ali Nazir, you are live now. Please have your question.
So, sir, I just want to ask, we can only apply maintenance techniques to only maintainable assets, like you explained, when our desired capacity is less than initial capacity, or like. So, if an asset is not maintainable, so it simply we should ignore this, or there can be a solution, any maintenance applicable solution to it.
Yeah. No, you get it.
Okay, apparently there is some technical problem at Dr. Anis' side. We'll be get back as soon as he's live. Meanwhile, he is getting back with the internet connection. I'm launching a very short poll of 3 questions. Meanwhile, you can give your MCQs here, answer on the short-term question. I think Dr. Anis is also back. Dr. Saab, in your absence, while you were reconnected, I have given a short poll.
I think I should be present right now for this question. I think I should be present for this.
It's almost like an anonymous thing, so you don't worry. We can have a very fair feedback from the people, and I believe it would be very great feedback from the people.
Guys, give your feedback. Jawad is evaluating.
Okay, we are having a good. Yes.
He's sitting in front of me right now.
So today we decided to have a webinar in the same room. Normally we always do it on the remote locations. I'm outside in the office. I'm sitting in his office. So it's actually very good to see him directly and on live as well.
Taking the knowledge.
Yes.
Okay, are we done with the thing or not?
Okay, we are done. Almost 45% of people have voted, and meanwhile you can carry on, sir, and people can still continue voting. We will get the result. And also, before I hand over to Dr. Anis Saab, I'll tell one more thing. I have shared the link of feedback form in the chat session. Everyone, please copy that link. And after this session, you need to give your feedback. We will actually appreciate, and it is a request to give your feedback on the feedback form that is given in the link. That will help us to gather your email and other contact details so we can share the participation certificate. And on this platform you have directly joined the room without sharing your email, because we have given the open link, so it can be joined by any one of you. So if you want the attendance certificate of today's webinar, please fill in the feedback form, give us your email address and contact details, so we will share your feedback form. Thank you very much all. Dr. Nisab, it's back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so for that asset which is not maintainable, we need to go for redesign. We need to modify the things, and then only we can get to that level. Okay, ji, let's talk for the exercise right now. Can you see my screen, ji? देख सकते हैं? Okay, let's define some functions for now. Just to keep things a bit light, I would ask everybody that everybody sitting on a chair right now. Let's define a function of the seat, of the chair, of the sofa, or the bed where you are sitting right now. What is that? What is that objective? Having all this discussion in the background. So the question is, what is the primary function of an office chair, which has been described that maybe it has to take up 450 pounds in a seated position. What else can you define as a function for the seat you are using right now? So just type whatever comes to your mind while keeping in, just type what box. Please, you start now. I need all, right now there are around 70 participants. I need 70 replies right now. Please write. While keeping all this discussion, that you need to define the desired standard of performance. Jawasab, you will also write.
Okay, sir. I will.
Okay, I'm getting the answers. I'm getting the answers. Please, guys, Waqas, please do give your input. Okay, let me call out the names, I guess. Naveed Ahmed, okay, I'll discuss everything. I think Ms. Wajiha Forum is there also. You can write your own feedback for the chair which you are sitting right now listening to me. Ms. Wajiha Forum. She is my sister, by the way. Okay, let me start reading one by one. Sir, let's start with Abdul Wahid Saab. Sir, let's start with Abdul Wahid Saab. He's saying my chair should provide the desired comfort level. Sir, what is your desired comfort level? For me, maybe relaxing on the back is my comfort level. What is yours?
Yeah,
sir.
It's quite, you have answered my question. It's similar to, I should have a comfort level so that I can lean myself on the back and
yes,
relax.
So what is desired performance? That you need a chair that can lean to at least maybe 45 degrees. So if I would rewrite that function, my chair should provide the desired comfort level, and I could lean on it till 45 degrees. Ab agar 45 degrees tak lean nahi ho pa rahi, then it is a failure state for your chair. You got it, sir?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Then Syed Rasool sir, you just said comfort. What is your comfort level, sir? For me, maybe an air conditioning unit is more comfortable. But what about chair? We need to
Actually,
define.
I'm sitting in my office.
Okay.
My comfort level is that the chair can provide me such a height so that I can use the laptop on the table.
That's great. So there must be some height which you need, right?
Yeah, it's just an adjustable chair.
Okay, so that can be like this. Okay, I need a chair. Yeah, my chair should give me access to, let's suppose, 2 feet from the ground so that I can work on the laptop. That 2 feet or 3 feet maybe, that is actually your desired level of performance. You got my point, sir? Okay, then Mr. Vikas Badr Sahab, you are also having same thing, to be comfort and relax. The same comment, what is your comfort level? We need to be specific. Naveed Ahmed Khanzada Sahab, the chair would weigh my weight. Sir, how much is your weight?
Let me unmute you.
I mean, if you want to share, I mean, it should be like this, that my chair should bear my weight. No, it's not like that. My chair should bear the weight up to maybe something. You need to specify desired standard of performance. So वो हमें mention करना पड़ेगा. I hope you got my point. Okay, Faisal Saab says ergonomically comfortable. Okay. Faisal Saab, let's explain, please. कर दें आप. What is meant by ergonomically?
Let me unmute him. Okay, Faisal Saab, you are live now, please.
It means that whenever I have to sit for hours working in my office, then any kind of musculoskeletal pain must not be developed. I should have an adjustable backrest. It's not so sitting discomfort or confined kind of a chair. It must be adequately comfortable for sitting with adjustable backrest.
How many hours do you sit normally at one time? 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours?
On average, it may be 4 hours a day.
So we need to add this 4 hours stuff here. So I would be writing it like this, that ergonomically comfortable for up to 4 hours for comfortable working. अब जहाँ पे वो 4 घंटे तक आपको comfortable zone में नहीं रख रही, वो 3 घंटे बाद आपको uncomfortable zone में दाखिल कर रही है, that is a failure state of your chair. So I hope you got my point. We need to define a desired standard of performance. ठीक है जी, it should be quantitative, not qualitative. Sir, you got my point, I guess.
Very right. Agreed.
Okay, Jawad sir, what is your? My chair should be economically. Okay, I think people got my replies. Let me, लेकिन अभी तक किसी में भी मुझे वो desired performance level जो है in terms of quantitative analysis वो नजर नहीं आया. But I hope you got my situation. ये नजीर साहब ने लिखा है comfortable sitting for a long duration. Sir, how much long? So we need to be very specific. अब मैं करता ये हूँ जी कि मैं आपके सामने कुछ सैंपल इसके जो है ना वो पिकअप करता हूँ कि how actually these functions can be. Now can you see my screen जी? आप देख सकते हैं? Jawad sir, can you see it?
No, sir. It's just written RCM exercise.pdf.
Why is it not? Just one moment, ji.
I think you will need to reshare the screen with them.
Yes. Can you see it now? Okay. So all participants, let me read couple of functions for this chair. To enable an occupant to remain seated for up to 2 hours at a time without discomfort. फिर हमने एक लेवल की बात की थी. To enable the occupant to set the height of the seat between 18 and 23 inches above the floor. So, Saad Rasool Sahab, I hope you got this, that it needs to be specific with respect to height. Then, Wahid Sahab, you said about your comfort zone with respect to lean. To enable an occupant to adjust the seat assembly between horizontal and 20 degrees from horizontal. So once again, we need to be specific. I hope people are getting what I want to say, that we need to be defining standard of performance while giving a desired function. ठीक है जी? I hope everybody got it. अगर कोई still question है इसके ऊपर मुझे बताइए, then I'll be moving on to my presentation again.
Currently, we don't have any questions right now, Raksan.
Okay, let's start with the next section, that is defining failure states and going through FMEA. So the set of questions that we'll be addressing this part is, in what ways can it fail? किस तरह ये part fail हो सकता है? What causes it to fail? What are the reasons? And does it really matters if it fails? You need to define failed states and identify the failure modes and failure effects. So let's address these three questions all at a time. We are having another slide available with us. Let's take an objective that somebody has to fill some marshmallows into a bag. So we can have three possibilities. Either it is too much, it is too little, and or we can have not a single marshmallow inside the bag. So we are defining our failures into further two categories. Either it can be a partial failure or it can be a total failure. If we are having something as a partial failure, we are not able to fulfill that desired level of performance, that is 25 grams. If we are having more than that, it is also a failure state, so we cannot fulfill that objective. And if we are having no marshmallow inside that, we call that as total failure. Okay, so let me sort out this part. So this is actually a sample FMEA sheet, where in the first column you can see function. In the second column we are having functional failure. In the third column we are having failure mode, and in the fourth column we are having failure effects. So in the first column, function, we have already defined that, very specific, to pump water from tank A to tank B at rate not less than 300 liters per minute. ये हमारा फंक्शन था जी, जो हमने पहले एक एक्सरसाइज देखी. तो इसका फेलियर किस तरह हो सकता है? We can have two possibilities. Either it fails to pump any water at all, or it pumps less than 300 liters per minute. So having background of all my conversation till now, if it fails to pump any water at all, what type of failure would that be? Would that be a total failure, or would that be a partial failure? I think it will be a total failure. And if it is giving us less than 300 liters per minute, it is a partial failure. So for total failure, there will be different failure modes. And for partial failure, we'll be having different failure modes. Maybe let me read out a couple of them for you. If a pump fails to if it fails to pump any water at all, means it is a total failure. There may be a lack of lubrication, maybe a fatigue of coupling retention bolts, and the list can goes on. But if it pumps less than 300 liters per minute, or maybe we are having some partial failure, शायद उसके impeller corrode हो चुके हैं, or something like this, and then their effects. So this is how we read that. We are having function, the failure is total, reason is lack of lubrication. What will be the effect? This is our function. It is having partial failure, reason is impeller corrosion. What is the effect? So this is how we are having multiple functional failures and multiple failure modes for a single function. A question आप लोगों के ज़हन में इसमें बताना चाहिए, that should be, can we have multiple functions for a single asset? Yes, we should, when we can have. So we should have everything listed here, or her function के against we need to define their functional failures, their failure modes, and their failure effects. So this is a long exercise beyond the scope of this webinar right now, but this is how we should do FMEA. Then we should talk about the failure consequences. What are the consequences of the failure? what actually happens if things fail? What are the failure consequences? These failure consequences, they actually fall under these four categories: hidden failures, safety and environmental conditions, operational consequences, and non-operational consequences. They are actually in the order of their priorities. First, we should talk about hidden failures. You are all working on plant sites, और आपके plants के ऊपर, let's take an example of a fire alarm. Let's think where you are sitting right now in some room. I'm having a fire alarm somewhere in my roof. God forbidden, इस वक्त इस फायर अलार्म की जरूरत इस रूम में या जहाँ पे भी आप बैठे हुए हैं यहाँ पे पड़ जाती है. Can anybody give me guarantee कि ये काम करेगा? Can anybody give me surety? Although I'm having a very active maintenance plan for this fire alarm, इसके checkings भी हो रही हैं, इसके schedules भी defined हैं, and it is up to date भी है, calibrated भी है, everything is there. But can anybody give me guarantee that it will work right now? No. So maybe that asset has failed right now, and it is resting at its location without letting anybody know. ये हमें कब पता चलेगा कि ये asset fail हो चुका है? Once we will put into operation. So hidden failures are something where those failures are only come to you, or you are only aware of those failures only when that asset is put into operation. We call them as hidden failures. So you think that asset is available for you, but actually it is not available for you. So this is called as hidden failure. हम इसमें examples अभी देखते हैं. Then second part is safety and environmental consequences. Whatever is the function, whatever is the requirement, what are its safety and environmental consequences? Somebody could get hurt or killed for environmental standards हम breach नहीं कर रहे, or anything that we are just not following, so we can have that thing afterwards. Then third sequence will be operational consequences. Whatever is the objective, whatever is the function, is it affecting my operation? अगर I am having a feed water pump running somewhere जिसकी वजह से down the line सारा process मेरा उस पर dependent है, so that feed water pump, any problem in that would actually give an operational consequence. But if that is an auxiliary fan running in some area जहाँ पे मेरे पास backup मौजूद है, maybe I'm having non-operational consequences. So what are the failure consequences? We need to discuss hidden failures. We need to address safety and environmental consequences. We need to differentiate between operational and non-operational consequences. अब इसको थोड़ा सा further explain करते हैं. I hope people are with me. They are getting या कुछ ज़्यादा thick तो नहीं हो गया जी? I mean, people are getting or no? Any feedback, Jawad sir?
So apparently the people who has turned on their video, I can see the interest, and people are still here. We are almost 70 minutes from the beginning now, and we have less like 20 minutes to go, and people are here. It means they are getting interest.
Let's start. I'm talking about hidden failures right now. If that failure, it is a bit thick, a bit difficult to understand. If that failure is evident to the operator, means it is not hidden. इसका आंसर अगर no है, it is not evident to the operator and it is actually a hidden failure, then what we need to do, we need to ask predictive or preventive maintenance is desirable. If a suitable proactive task cannot be found, do a failure finding task and redesign may be compulsory. But if that failure is evident to the operator, means it is hidden failure, then I need to ask, affect safety or the environment, predictive or preventive maintenance is compulsory in that case. If a suitable proactive task cannot be found, redesign is compulsory. If it is not at all affecting the safety and environment and the answer is no, then I would go for operational consequences. Does it affect the operations? Yes, it does. Then what we need to do? We need to go for predictive or preventive maintenance is desirable. If a suitable proactive task cannot be found, no scheduled maintenance is there and redesign may be desirable. और अब अगर इसका operational consequence नहीं है and we are having non-operational consequence, then what we are having right now, we are having almost same categories where we need to talk about predictive or preventive maintenance is desirable. If a suitable corrective task cannot be found, no scheduled maintenance is there, and redesign may be desirable. So what I'm trying to do is, this is the blue one is actually talk about hidden failures. Red one is about environment and safety. Green one is about operational consequences, and brown one is about non-operational consequences. So we need to pick and choose how actually they are working. The most critical of all of these things are typical hidden failures, जो कि हमें take up करने हैं. Emergency stop buttons, circuit breakers, over temperature alarms, fire sprinkler systems. I mean, all these sort of sensors, basically, I would say, they fall under the category of hidden failures, which are most difficult to identify. Let me put another exercise in front of you to keep your interest alive. I hope you can see that. Can you see my screen?
Yes, but the exercise is not open.
Okay, let me stop it. आप देख रहे हैं स्क्रीन? ब्लैंक है? ओके.
So I started screen sharing, but still it's not visible.
There's something wrong with this. देखिए, नहीं है ना?
Okay, it's a hidden function exercise.
देखिए, नहीं है ना?
It's live.
Okay, I hope everybody can see it now. Now what I want.
Okay, apparently there was a small glitch with the internet connection, and okay, let me unmute you. Okay, we can see you now, Dr. You're live again.
And the street is front here.
Yes.
Okay, let's quickly go through that. Okay, जी, everybody please focus on the screen. मैं आपके सामने एक एग्जांपल सेट करता हूँ, रखता हूँ, और we need to identify कि whether this failure will be evident to the operator or not. Will it be a hidden failure or it will be evident to the operator? Let's stop. The first point is saying an electric kettle contains a switch whose primary function is to switch off the power when the water in the kettle reaches the boiling point. It also has a plug ejector whose primary function is to eject the plug if the kettle boils dry. The question is, will the failure of the switch on its own become evident to the operator under normal circumstances? Will the failure of the ejector on its own become evident to the operator under normal circumstances? You please read that part again and just give me this answer. आप इसमें yes or no में जवाब दीजिएगा please. Then I will be showing you the answers. तो इसको जरा दोबारा पढ़ लीजिए first part को and just give me your answer. पार्टिसिपेंट्स को देखते हैं, आप देख रहे होते हैं. मतलब मेरी जो स्क्रीन शो हो रही है इसके अंदर कुछ होता है. ये वाला पार्ट ओके फाइन. अगर मैं ये करता हूँ ये नहीं आता तो मैं पार्टिसिपेंट देखता हूँ. हाँ जी, कैन यू आर यू गेटिंग समथिंग जी? Okay, everybody saying no. No for both. No. Okay. Let's wait for 1 more minute. Then I'll be showing you the answer. Okay. But let's focus on the answer now for just one part. Okay, ji, this is the answer. मैं पढ़ता हूँ, so now you try to make some understanding out of it. In normal course of events, the plug ejector would be working if the switch is failed. So if the plug would be ejected, the ejected plug and the dry kettle and the kitchen full of steam would all be clearly evident to the operator. So the functional failure of the switch is evident. But on the other hand, ejector is jammed. In the normal course of events, the switch would still be working. The switch would still shut off the power. The kettle would not boil dry, and no one would know that the plug ejector has not functioning. So the functional failure of the ejector is hidden. So the first one will be evident, but the second one cannot. The reason is, sometimes we cannot force the sequence of events. Just for your interest, I will be reading it again. In normal course of events, the plug ejector would be working if the switch failed. So if the switch failed, the kettle boiled dry, the plug would be ejected. The ejected plug and the dry kettle would be all clearly evident to the operator. So the functional failure would be evident. So this is how we need to identify that how these failures can be hidden or not. So this is a long list. Jawad sir will be sending you this exercise. You can, I hope that makes sense. And let's move on towards our presentation again. Okay, ji. So we have covered failure consequences. Now we are about to close our lecture. We need to go for defining appropriate maintenance policies. What we should do? Can anything be done to predict or prevent the failure? Determine appropriate maintenance policies that we have to adopt. In that case, we need to go for proactive tasks, on condition tasks, schedule restoration, schedule discardation. So we need to do different actions, different proactive tasks to identify appropriate maintenance policies. Actually, we will be following same framework of RCM जो मैंने start में discuss किया कि what to do at what point, and we need to do different maintenance strategies for that. Then what we are seeing is what are the default actions. Those default actions are actually that if we do everything but still we are not able to get away from the failures, what should we do? We can go for failure finding. Maybe we can go for something which has not yet happened yet. We need to redesign. Where I talk about the word redesign, it always means we have to go for proactive tasks, or you can just leave that machine to fail at its own. We have to go for no scheduled maintenance. So these are actually after effects of all these efforts. So if I summarize all of that till now, the major part of all this exercise is lying by defining asset functions, going through failure mode and effect analysis, and identifying the failure consequences. और उसके बाद इस तमाम data को, once you have everything in front of you, how you will be assembling them. This is actually a sample RCM decision sheet where we are having multiple columns. It's a long process. हमने अभी तक इस पूरे lecture में in last 1.5 hours we have only covered little bits of first 3 columns, F, that is function, FF, that is functional failure, and FM, that is failure mod. So this is what we have done right now. Function, functional failure, and failure mod. I go back, and there are much more to do, like HSE, hidden failure, safety, operational consequences, non-operational consequences. You have to category everything, define the proposed task, define the monthly interval, whatever you want to do, and then assign the responsibility. So by the end of the exercise, every asset should have this sort of sheet. What we have done, 1A1, what does that mean? It is actually 1A1. Then we talk about, let's talk about 1A3. What does that mean? Function 1, functional failure A, and failure mod 3. So what we are doing right now is we are tracking each function and its failure mod and its functional failures. Everything is being recorded here with these different alphabetic and numeric codes. And this sort of sheet should be prepared for every asset that we need to maintain. But believe you me, this is a complete exercise, and this is much more to cover in this topic, but due to time limitation, we cannot do that. Let's quickly summarize all of our lecture by having this quick example, then I'll be calling off. Let's take a scenario. We're having two cases. In first case, we are having a standalone pump, और दूसरे केस में हमारे पास एक ड्यूटी पंप है और एक स्टैंड बाय पंप मौजूद है. So we are having a backup. So conventional maintenance philosophy, traditional view would ask us, in तीनों pumps को we have to look after under the same. How it goes? Failure mod is bearing seized, okay. Failure effect is pump trips and downstream process stops. So what will be the failure consequences? I hope everybody can understand. अगर ये pump fail होता है तो इसके failure consequences जो हैं वो operational होंगे जी, क्या ना operational होंगे? It will be operational. So we need to predict or prevent the failure because we are having just one pump in this case. Now let's move towards our second case जहाँ पे हमारे पास दो pumps हैं, one is duty and the other one is standby. Let's talk about duty pump first. Function is same, functional failure is same, failure mod is same, but the difference comes to the failure effect. Pump B trips, pump C starts and process is not interrupted. अब इस केस के अंदर failure consequence क्या होगा जी? It will be operational or non-operational because you are having a backup available. I think it should be non-operational because you are having a backup right now. If that goes off, that doesn't matter. You can start pump C. So we are looking pump A with different perspective and pump B with different perspective. Let's talk about pump C now, which is the backup. Function is almost same, to deliver 100 liters per minute of chemical X to the process in the event if pump B fails. Failure is same, failure mod is same, but the failure effect will be different. Failure will have no impact unless B also fails. Failure of pump C would not be evident to the operator under normal circumstances because जब तक pump C operation में नहीं आएगा, you cannot assess whether it is working or not. So what will be the failure consequences? It will be hidden. So what we have done, we have considered three different pumps, and for different operating contexts, for different functions that they are actually up to, we have defined different failure consequences where we are having the conclusions right now. In case of pump A, it is all operational. In case of pump B, it is non-operational. And in case of pump C, it is all hidden. So this is how, let me summarize everything now. This is how what RCM says, that for different types of assets, for different categories of assets, you need to define different maintenance techniques, different maintenance philosophies as per their failure consequences. If you are too much dependent on an asset, strategies will be different. If you are not that much dependent, strategies will be different. If you are having more hidden failures available, strategies will be different. और ये strategies जो हैं, they are actually covered up by taking RCM framework into account, where you need to see which technology, which approach is best suited for what purpose. Let me conclude my presentation here. Things are kept on running and things will be kept on running under four umbrellas: reactive, preventive, predictive, and proactive. But the uniqueness now is you need to identify where to use these four techniques. That is all RCM about. So that's all from my side. Thank you very much. Now I should open this forum for any discussion, any feedback, any concern, any question. It is all yours now. Thank you very much from my side.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saab. It was indeed a very, very great session, very informative session. I believe that all participants have enjoyed a great, and they have actually learned a lot. I don't know about anyone else, but I know about myself. It was very knowledgeable session for myself as well. We have very tenured and experienced people sitting here in our webinar. So I believe that it was going good, because after 90 minutes, I can see the interest of all the participants. It's actually very good. So if anyone want to have some conclusive remarks or comments, especially our very kind person, Abdul Wahid Saab, if you want to add something before I can actually end the session. Okay, Wahid Saab, let me unmute you before you can actually talk. Sir, it's up to you now.
It's a great session. Thank you so much. I myself have learned a few things, and mashallah, Dr. Saab has a very unique style of making sure everybody does the understanding. So that's also my level of understanding, or my learning is enhancing. Yes, people have to think that what maintenance strategies they are using it and why they are going to use it. And at the end of the day, the cost is the essence, and you can do some cost analysis, find out if you do nothing, what would be the consequences of the failures, and if you want to apply those predictive maintenance, what would be the cost avoidance. Because management has one burning question in every session, regardless which organization they are running: what would my ROI, what would be my return of investment? If you are suggesting me a technology, how would I get benefit? So guys, thank you so much. Very learning opportunity from Dr. Saab. Thank you so much. Jazakallah khair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abdul Wahid Saab. Thanks for your kind words always. And it's really good to know that people like you giving such a great feedback. It means that our all participants have had a very great day, great time with us. Any other conclusive remarks or comments from any other participants? You can actually send us a chat message in the chat window so I can unmute them. We have just like 2 to 3 minutes to conclude the session, and before I conclude the session, I would like to reiterate that please don't forget to give us the feedback on the feedback form, which I have already shared with you. If someone don't have it, please send us a message so I can share it. Mohammad Faisal Shehzad is having a comment. He's saying, I concluded about my own question posed to Dr. Anish initially that reliability-based preventive maintenance is a subset of RCM. Yes, preventive, it all actually comes under the...
Actually, Faisal, these preventive, predictive, proactive, everything is under RCM. The thing is, you need to pick and choose what is the right methodology for the right job. And what we have done today is that we have tried to learn how to pick, how to decide on various parameters that which technology should be adopted, either it is preventive or predictive for your asset. Everything is under reliability centered maintenance, but the thing is, which technique should be for what asset. That's all. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saab. And then I can see Javed Saab is asking for the webinar link, and Farhan Saab is asking for the...
Thank you very much. Take care.